Today we will discuss music, as well as we will discuss Heilung. I think that if you are even vaguely interested in Viking Age themes, video games, pagan stuff, you have probably already heard of Heilung. I remember that they did a song for Senua's Saga, which is Hellblade 2, a couple of years ago. And that trailer was really, really cool. I don't know like how much I'm allowed to show on here, but I mean, you can tell it's badass. And I have actually gotten asked here and there about Heilung specifically, and if Heilung represents a historically accurate image. So let's explore this together with what ancient music was, what kind of instruments were even available historically, what kind of music does Heilung do, and what are they doing in their so-called rituals, like their concerts, and how historically accurate or not it all is. And most important, what does Heilung actually think about what they're doing? Let's go over ancient music. I want to mention something that many people don't even consider that it exists. Music archaeology, or sound archaeology. And it's a relatively new field of research that emerged in the 1970s, so not too old. I wrote a little bit about it in my, a little note in my bachelor's thesis about music archaeology. The whole idea about what kind of role did sounds play in ancient monuments and artifacts and places and historical buildings, it's fascinating. Another thing that is relatively not thought about in our everyday lives is the sound of our everyday life. The background noise that you and me hear during the 2000s is so vastly different from the background noise that you would hear historically before the Industrial Revolution. So the background noise during the Scandinavian Iron Age would have been completely different. No neighbors, opening and closing their door, no electrical background buzz all the time, no cars in the distance, no road work, no drilling. And just imagine how much the planted trees capture sound in a different kind of way than it would have been in an open landscape, and how the sound actually within a city travels off buildings and jumps back and forth between buildings. And this is an element I have observed with Heilung, is that they sometimes play with this a little bit, where they play nature sounds like bird chirps and wind sounds and so on, like this nature ambience. But let's be more straightforward from now on. Let's talk about music instruments specifically, mainly in a Northern European context. So I will focus on the groups of instruments that I can detect from their live performances. Let's start off with drums. Of course, bells and rattles have been used in the ancient past to convey sounds as well. And in Northern Europe, these have their roots in the Stone Age. This type of instrument. I mean, they probably go way back, but that is what we can prove and what we have found. So rattling instruments, oftentimes in the form of bells, are quite commonly found in Iron Age graves. These were sometimes attached to horse equipment, but also to like human clothing. I just noticed right now that I am rattling quite a lot myself right now. But some of these bells, they might have been used purely as instruments or as sound effects, for example, during dance. And from what I can see, Heilung is also using bells, rattles. Heilung also uses these kinds of clapper instruments made out of bone. So you hit these tiny bones together as a little drum. And these type of bones, they have been dated from ancient Egypt, so around 3,000 years ago. In Scandinavia, it's rather hard to say when you find bones, right? It is very hard to say if they have been used to go like this due to the state of the bones, but also we find a lot of bones within archaeology. I can also see that Heilung uses this rattling of metal, like these big discs that they go like on and so on. Heilung really leans heavy into the drums, and drums are loosely described as the oldest instrument in the world, besides singing, of course. The oldest drums in Scandinavia, besides the Sami drums, is a believed drumstick that was found in southern Norway. And this drumstick was dated around year 100 AD. But the drums themselves are very hard to come by because the material breaks down The oldest drum so far that I found in Europe is from Mähren in Czech Republic, and that drum is from around 6000 BC. And it consisted of like this hollowed out tree trunk that had been covered with reptile or fish skin, like, on top, so it becomes like a drum. But let's get back to Heilung. From what I can see, they are using something that is very inspired by Sami drums. The oldest Sami drums around Scandinavia are about 350 years old, so not too old. Obviously, the tradition behind them are much, much, much older. Unfortunately, the states and the governments in Scandinavia had a bonfire. They destroyed a lot of these drums when they thought that, what, everyone who lives here, we decided you're Christian now. So due to pure stupidity, we have probably lost a lot of history through those prosecutions. I want to talk about blowing instrument. And first, I want to talk about lures. I am not 100% if Heilung has used lures. I haven't seen a clip of that, but I want to talk about bronze lures because I want to, and this is my video, and we're talking about instrument, and they are so cool, so I'm gonna do it. Like, have you seen these bad boys? And I hold them so close to my heart. I have grown up hearing these lures being played. Here are literally photos from my childhood. They have not only been depicted on petroglyphs around Scandinavia, they have actually been found. The instruments, they have been found. Okay, back to Heilung and their blowing instruments. From this performance of Heilung, I can see that they are using a so-called war horn. It's a blow horn. It makes this very mighty sound. These horns can make really loud sounds if you know what you're doing. And here we can see that they've even put a kind of an amplifier in the back of it. So I bet he can blow it pretty loud. This type of horn was famously used by Heimdallr in Norse mythology. He had the famous Gjallarhorn, which is the horn of Gjallar. It was put on Heimdallr's shoulder to detect when the end of the world, Ragnarök, was coming. And then he was ordered to blow the Gjallarhorn. Maybe Heimdallr also used an amplifier in the edge of his horn. The tales does not confirm or deny. In Sweden, there has been a tradition of using cow horn specifically when in connection to folk music, for example, as well as goat horns. The oldest blow horn found in Scandinavia is around 2000 years old. It was found in a bog in Värmland, a county in Sweden. And here is a replica. This is called Konsterudshornet. So here is where we run into a more modernization of the war horn or the blow horn as used by Heilung. So something tells me that this is not a goat horn or a cow horn. It is definitely probably a cattle horn. In Northern Europe, the Highland cattle is the species with the biggest horn. And they have nothing on this man's horn right here. So this horn is probably made by a Texas Longhorn or Ankole Watusi cattle or some similar breed in order to have it that big. In this category, I also want to add that there was trumpets made out of wood found at the famous Oseberg ship burial. And here is a recreation of that. As well as Neolithic, so Stone Age whistles have been found in Sweden made out of boar tusks and sheep bone. And these whistles, they sound beautifully. I just realized that I cannot do this with a mic, so that's all you're gonna get from me. Let's talk string instruments. I will add disc buzzers here, just so you can see what they are, because they are really cool. I bet you've seen them at like Renaissance or medieval fairs, because they are more of a medieval instruments, but who knows? They make this type of sound. So cool. I also want to mention mouth bows, and this one has been found in a Mesolithic, so Stone Age, bog in Sweden. So Heilung also use this. This is a talharpa or tagelharpa or hiurutsi or hiukannel. Historically, this is an instrument that has been played in Sweden and Estonia, especially amongst Estonian Swedes, which are their own people. And these have been used since the 10th century AD. There are also similar instruments to this around the area as well. In Finland, for example, we have the Finnish johohikko, and the Welsh have something called krotta. It had like 10 other different names, I think, as well, but I will go with krotta because that was the that was the one I could pronounce the best. And there is also a stone carving in Trondheim in Norway, and it is situated in the Trondheim Cathedral, and it displays a person playing a bowed lyre. This is from around the 14th century. The last category of instruments that I'm going to talk about is the voice. It is well known and understood and accepted that song is by nature ancient. As long as humans have been able to speak, I'm fairly sure that we have also been singing. And Heilung does a really good job with encapsulating that ancient kind of voice in their sound. They use song and voices to create different levels in their tracks. They have lighter, softer sounds that then crash into harsher and lower sounds coming from the different variations of singers. And they also harmonize, and then they break it off, and then they, put different layers of voices on top of each other. And regarding the use of singing and voices, I want to talk specifically about songs that Heilung has made and how they are connected to history, because there definitely is a fusion with Heilung and history. And I won't go through their whole discography. I will keep it brief. I will go through a couple of songs that I have noticed that, I see what you're doing here. Let's start off with this song, Anuana. I love this song. The lyrics from Anuana, and here I am quoting the band's explanation so that you don't just think that I am taking some kind of artistic interpretation on this. This is actually what they themselves say as well. So the lyrics come from ancient bracteates from the Roman era found around Scandinavia and also the rest of Europe. The thing with these bracteates is that we have lost a lot of their meanings. We don't understand them anymore. Not too long ago they found the oldest spelling out of the god Odin on one of these type of bracteates. Here it is. The word landavarjar that is used in the Anuana song specifically is taken from these bracteates. And the band themselves say landavarjar means the protector of the land, which kinda is the feeling that you get when you are listening to the song. One of their most famous songs is Norupo. And Norupo actually consists and cites rune poems that have been found on medieval manuscripts. And all of these manuscripts that were older, they have either burned up, as is the case with the English one, or were lost due to unspecific other circumstances, like the Norwegian one. But we still have the copies from the medieval sources. The song Krigskalder is inspired by the Eggia stone. And that stone is one of those rare cases where you find a rune stone that is also a gravestone. And in the video, I mean, you can clearly tell why it is historical. You can clearly see that there's a lot of petroglyphs doing a bunch of different things. And many of these petroglyphs exist in real life. So many of them are actual real historical petroglyphs that are moving around here. They also feature the stone itself in this video, and it's easy to recognize it because it has like this horse on it. In the song they've also mixed in English, modern English, which is also, I think is a great contrast. The song Galgalder cites the text from Voluspa, which is a poem from the Poetic Edda. Again, one of these medieval source materials we have for Norse mythology and the runes and all of that stuff. Very important texts. So they are basically reciting the whole Ragnarök thing happening, where in the song you can also hear the blowing of the horn. As we talked about before, the Gjallarhorn that Heimdallr was supposed to blow. You can hear it so vividly in the song, which again adds a layer, It's not only about the song, it's not only about the sound, it's not only, it's the whole impression that is so immensely detailed always with Heilung. The song Traust is inspired by the so-called Merseburg charm. Die Merseburger Saufursprüche, something like that. And these are two medieval magical spells found in Germany, and they have their origins in the 9th century AD. Traust is based upon the first spell. The song Hamrer Hippier is based upon the second charm. The song Odin is inspired by the Havamål about Odin. There's no surprises there. And these are just some on-the-nose surface level examples. So you see like where the text, the inspiration, the whole vibe of songs come from and where they originate in history. And I'm sure there are so many details left to discover in all of their songs. From here, I also want to touch upon the band's image, so the clothing, the outfits, the makeup, the ritual aspect. The band describes their music as amplified history from early medieval Northern Europe, and the live show is as much as a theater piece or living history as it is a concert, with everyone, including a quartet of extra musicians, decked out in the authentic regalia of their respective cultures, including antlers, human hair, bones. This was said in an interview for Montreal Rocks 2020. And as we can see, there's a lot of skulls, there's a lot of bones, there's a lot of spears, shields, petroglyphs, runes present at their live shows and in their videos and on their photos. They also include face paint and body paint. Their headpieces strongly reminds me of the Dyrenberg shaman, and I'm sure that there is kinda the inspiration behind it as well. I don't know, but that is my thought. And the Dyrenberg shaman was a woman buried together with a child around 9,000 years ago, and this is one of central Germany's oldest graves. The analysis of the woman's skeleton revealed that her two uppermost cervical vertebrae were malformed and that blood vessels in the lower skull area could have been spatially restricted. And this malfunction might have actually added upon her specialness, her uniqueness, because anthropologists actually believe that if she held her head in a certain position, that she could shut off the blood flow from there, which would then lead possibly to involuntary eye movement. From what I've seen also, one of the singers has the so-called Zierscheibe, so ornamental sun discs. He has them on top of his headgear. These are metal ornamental discs dating between the Bronze Age up to the Iron Age around Europe. They also wear these type of things, so hand-woven belts. And these also, these are present all over the world, I bet, in every single culture. The different patterns and colors means different things in different cultures. The oldest tools for weaving these type of belts have been found in Italy, around 800 BC. And I mean, the tradition of weaving these type of belts have been probably very strong before that and definitely after that point in time in Europe. Lastly, we are coming to the ritualistic part of Heilung. The questions I get are often phrased in a way where people are wondering about the ritualistic part to Heilung, which is not too surprising since they use the word ritual pretty often themselves. Heilung means healing in German. If we look at the music video for Norruppo, they are eating these funny mushrooms in the beginning before this music video ritual that they're doing amongst the rocks. And the idea that the Vikings ate Fly Agaric mushrooms to enter berserker rage or a ritualistic headspace is with all likelihood more of a myth than it is a truth. And why I say that is because it was made up by a Swedish man, and in Sweden it is pretty accepted that it was made up by this Swedish man. It was Professor Samuel Ödman who first suggested it back in 1748. You know, back then they romanticized Vikings very, very, very much. And their evidence was that they saw it in a dream. But there is actually no Viking Age sources that mention these type of mushrooms at all. And with all of that said, poisoning from these mushrooms, it can cause emergency psychosis with intense hallucinations, aggressive, bizarre behavior. It always talks about insane diarrhea as well and death, so it's dangerous. Don't. If you're thinking about it, don't. However, another dangerous fungi that is present during the Iron Age in Northern Europe and Scandinavia, Claviceps purpurea. And this is a parasitic species actually. It infects, think about it as a mold. It infects grains. Contains ergot alkaloids, which kind of makes it into this trippy SD kind of effect. and it can cause toxic central nervous system symptoms, including like hallucinations. It also can cause severe blood vessel constriction, potentially leading to tissue death and the loss of finger and toes. I think it's important that I mention this type of fungus because we actually do have Iron Age evidence, archaeological evidence for this mushroom being digested by people during the time, but probably involuntarily. A famous example is the grauballemann, an Iron Age bog body found in Denmark. And the grauballemann is dated around 200 to 400 BC. With all of that said, please don't eat like poisonous mushrooms with intent. Please don't do that. Thank you. Heart failure, diarrhea, losing of limbs. Let's continue with the music video. We then see these raised stones, which, I mean, historically accurate, obviously. They are still standing there, these stones, in the landscape. And grey fields have been used in ritualistic purposes, obviously. And I have been asked about this whole like synchronized dancing thing that is going on in this music video. And I mean, maybe it is inspired by history and like sacred numbers and threefold and the number 3 and 9 and all of that. But I think that this is just like the artist's own flavor put into it, how they're dancing. And so I've taken this description from seasonofmist.com, and it says here that Heilung ceremonies are neither mere performances nor concerts. They are full immersions into the very essence of nature and spirit. These sacred rituals reach back in time, amplifying history through neo-folk music, dancing and spirituality. Envision the ancient runes breathe to life amidst the sound of bones, skin drums and the communal voice of the tribe. And I mean, somewhere in there we do find our answer. Heilung is, besides, an awesome human experience, they are neo-folk music, and neo means new. And they never make any claim to be historically accurate. They always want to reach kind of into history, but they never claim that this is history, what they're doing. I contacted Ruben, who is actually out and touring with Heilung right now as we speak about this. And he's been doing so for a while, so I thought that, I'm making a video about Heilung, why not reach out and ask him about his experience, since he's on the other side of the glass, so to say. Up there on the stage, he's performing together and touring, and he has another perspective than, for example, I do, who's merely observing all of these things. Since Ruben is out touring right now, I did not want to make it a hassle, so I interviewed him through text and voice memos instead. So I will do a retelling of his points. So when talking to Ruben, he expressed that he thinks that Heilung is very much a product of popular culture surrounding Northern European and Germanic history. He brought up the series Vikings as an example of this type of popular culture that really boosted the Viking Age during the early 2010s. So Heilung and bands like Vardruna and maybe a couple of other bands have now become major players within this field and have had great success from that point and forward. And Ruben expressed that this is kind of, to him, happening maybe inside of a bubble of history and popular culture that is regarding the Viking niche. Ruben further explains that it is safe to say that there has been like a new big wave of people that have found a genuine interest in Northern European, Germanic, Viking history, whatever you want to call it, where music have been like this big catalyst for this newly developed interest for so many people. And as we touched on in the beginning of this video, there are also other outlets. It's not just TV shows, there are movies, there are video games where music plays such an essential role. And we are now over 10 years down the road of when Vikings first aired, when people got their first real taste of this craze of neo-folk music. And Ruben says that Heilung definitely have contributed to this like massive amount of people that has found a genuine interest in history. From Ruben's perspective, what makes Heilung stand out in the music scene is that it has created its own subgenre, which is called amplified history. And as their name suggests, it is about amplifying history. So they are amplifying already existing themes and sounds. In Ruben's words, what is really unique with Heilung is the performances and the depth of the layers in which you can discover so much more always in their sound. Ruben describes the performance much more as theater and art. It's not just a concert where you have like the musicians on the stage. It is an experience for everyone. You can see Heilung, you can hear Heilung, you can experience, interact with, dance with Heilung, and you can even smell Heilung apparently due to incense being spread around during their performances. And that as an experience, as a human experience, really sets Heilung apart from other musical experiences and bands. And I think that that summarizes it very well. Thank you so much, Ruben, for taking the time to talk with me for this video. And besides being out touring with Heilung, Ruben also does photography, he draws, he takes beautiful portraits and pictures of museum objects, and he also wrote his archaeology bachelor's about sound archaeology. So I couldn't have found a better person to ask about these things for this video. So thank you everyone for going down the line of historical music with me today. And I hope you have enjoyed it. I certainly have. And if it wasn't already, very, very clear, I, as an archaeologist, my take is that I always approve of anything that makes people genuinely interested in history. So anything that can bring history to life again, somewhat, and using positive forces from the past to invoke new and old and ancient feelings. That is not only something that, I approve of. I actually think it is very important in a society to be able to invoke this kind of feelings. We are all living in the now, we are in the present, we are traveling through our own time zone, we cannot go back, we can only go forward. I think that Heilung does a great homage and a great favor to history and the past by existing in the way that they do. I hope you've learned something and that you noticed something different that you haven't noticed before with Heilung and their music. Hejdå! Because his horn is gigantic. That's what she said. Sorry.